The rain had a way of finding me that day, sliding down the rim of my umbrella, tapping the same rhythm that echoed inside my chest. 3 months since David's funeral, and yet the world hadn't slowed down for a moment. The city still moved, the wind still cut through the alleyways, and people still smiled, like they didn't know grief could have a heartbeat. I stood outside the lawyer's office, clutching a folder I hadn't opened yet. Inside it was the last piece of David's life, his will. I had imagined it 100 times. Maybe he'd left me the house, maybe the car, maybe, just maybe, the peace I'd been searching for since he was gone. But when the lawyer read the words aloud, everything I thought I knew about my marriage unraveled. The primary beneficiary of David Cole's estate, including the marital home, is one Ms. Clara James. At first, I didn't even flinch. The name meant nothing to me. Clara James could have been a cousin, a business partner, anyone. But then the lawyer hesitated, his tone shifting into something softer, almost apologetic. She's listed as his fiancée. My umbrella slipped from my hand, hitting the wet pavement. His what? I whispered. The lawyer looked away. It seems Mr. Cole made significant property and asset changes during the last year. I'm very sorry, Mrs. Cole. I wasn't Mrs. Cole anymore, apparently. I was a ghost wearing a widow's clothes. The drive home blurred into gray and headlights. My hands gripped the steering wheel, but my mind drifted through the years, the anniversaries, the long nights, the way he used to call me, my reason for calm. I pulled into the driveway of the house I thought was mine, and just sat there, the rain washing the windshield clean while my world turned dirty. When I finally walked inside, the air smelled the same. His cologne still lingered on the hallway mirror. The framed photos stared back at me like witnesses to a crime no one wanted to name. David had loved me, hadn't he? He'd bought me roses on Tuesdays. He'd texted me, "Miss you," from business trips. But then there were those trips, the ones that always lasted a little too long, the ones where his voice sounded distant and distracted. And now, they made sense. I found Clara James 2 weeks later. She lived in a high-rise downtown. Sleek glass walls, the kind of place you move into when you think you've won. I didn't plan to confront her. I told myself I just wanted to see her, to put a face to the ghost that had stolen my husband's promises. But when she opened the door, something inside me cracked. She was younger, maybe early 30s, with smooth dark hair and eyes that didn't know guilt. "Can I help you?" she asked, polite, almost bored. "I'm Helen Cole," I said. "David's wife." Her expression froze. She didn't deny it. She didn't even pretend surprise. She just stepped aside and said, "You should come in." The apartment was cold, sterile, like a showroom with no soul. On the counter sat a half-empty glass of red wine and a folder embossed with David's initials. My initials too, once. "How long?" I asked. She poured herself another drink, her movements slow, careful. 3 years, maybe a little more. My breath caught. 3 years. That meant every anniversary, every holiday, every "I love you" I'd clung to was a lie shared between two people. "He told me you were separated," she said, sipping her wine. "That you knew." I laughed, a sound that didn't feel like mine. "He told me he was faithful until the end." She tilted her head, pity flickering across her face. "He was sick, Helen. I took care of him those last months. You didn't even know where he was." My hands clenched, because he told me he was in a clinic. He said he needed space to recover. "You were the space, weren't you?" She didn't answer. I left, before I could do something I'd regret. But that night, I sat in the dark, staring at the deed to the house that wasn't mine anymore. And somewhere between grief and fury, I made a decision. If he'd given my life away to her, then I'd take it back. Not the house, not the money, the life. I sold my car first. Then the jewelry I couldn't stand to look at. Each sale felt like cutting off a memory, freeing myself inch by inch. I rented a tiny apartment by the coast. Paint peeling, salt air creeping through the window frames. It was quiet there, peaceful, but peace has a way of making you remember. In the evenings, I'd walk to the dock, watching fishermen haul in their nets, listening to the gulls cry over the waves. One night, I met a woman named Rosa, who ran a small seafood shack nearby. "You're new here," she said, handing me a cup of coffee one windy afternoon. "What brings you to our forgotten little town?" "Trying to remember who I was," I said. She smiled, knowingly. "Then you're in the right place. This town's full of people who had to start over." Rosa became my anchor. She didn't ask questions about my past, and I didn't offer answers. We worked side by side at her shack, me cleaning tables, her shouting orders over the sizzling pans. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. For the first time in years, I slept without nightmares. One morning, as I scrubbed the chalkboard menu clean, Rosa tossed me an envelope. "It's for you," she said. "Came with the mail truck." I frowned. No one sent me letters anymore. The envelope bore a law firm's logo. Inside was a notice. Clara James was selling my old house. The asking price was ridiculous, inflated beyond reason. But beneath the numbers, something caught my eye. Property to be sold at public auction, if not purchased by private party by July 15th. That was 3 weeks away. I stared at the date until the ink blurred. That house had been my prison once, but now maybe it could be my freedom. I spent the next days in a kind of fever. Every tip, every extra hour at the shack, every saved dollar. I counted it all. But it wasn't enough. Then, Rosa did something I'll never forget. "You've been working for me for almost a year," she said, pulling me aside one night. "You're the reason this place is still standing. So if you need help, ask. I can't take your money," I said. "Who said anything about giving?" She smiled. "We'll call it an investment. You buy your house back. You rent out the top floor. You pay me back when you can." Tears burned behind my eyes. "You don't even know the full story." She squeezed my hand. "I don't need to. I know a woman fighting to take her life back when I see one." The auction day arrived bright and cruelly sunny. I wore a navy dress, simple, clean, nothing of the woman who used to attend charity dinners beside a man with secrets in his smile. Clara was there too. She looked surprised when she saw me, maybe even nervous. I took my seat 2 rows behind her. When the auctioneer called out the property address, my heart drummed against my ribs. Bidding began. Clara raised her hand casually, confident. She probably assumed I was there to watch, to punish myself. But I lifted my card too. Her head turned sharply. Our eyes met. The room seemed to still. Round after round, the bids climbed. I could see her frustration growing, her calm veneer cracking. She wasn't bidding with emotion. She was bidding to win, to keep what wasn't hers. And I wasn't bidding for revenge. I was bidding for peace. At $530,000, her hand hesitated. The room held its breath, going once, going twice. I lifted my card again. 535. Clara's lips parted, but she didn't speak. The hammer fell. Sold. I didn't cry. Not there. Not then. I just sat still, letting the words settle like dust in sunlight. Sold. To the widow who bought back her life. When Clara walked past me on her way out, she stopped. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why fight for something he gave away?" I looked at her. Truly looked. She wasn't evil, just lost. Like I had been. Because it wasn't his to give, I said. It was mine the moment I built it with my hands, my heart, and my years. You can't inherit someone's soul. She turned away. I never saw her again. The house was empty when I returned. No furniture. No trace of him. Just the echo of footsteps and sunlight falling through the old stained glass window I'd chosen 20 years ago. I walked through every room. The walls still remembered laughter, arguments, and long silences. But they didn't hurt me anymore. In the living room, I found something, tucked behind the baseboard, dusty and forgotten. A small wooden box. Inside, a folded note in David's handwriting. "Helen, if you ever find this, I want you to know I was sorry. Not for dying, though I wish I could have said goodbye, but for everything before that. I was weak. I chased something that looked like love but wasn't. You were always the strong one, the real one. If you're reading this, I hope you've already forgiven me. But even if you haven't, I hope you're living again." The paper trembled in my hand, tears slipping onto the ink. It didn't erase the betrayal, but it softened the edges of it. Maybe he had known she'd find the truth one day. Maybe he'd wanted her to. 2 years later, the house wasn't just a house anymore. It was a women's retreat, a place for others starting over, the way I had. Rosa helped me run it. We called it Second Shore. We hosted women leaving broken marriages, lost careers, quiet heartbreaks. They came with boxes of regret and left with the courage to begin again. Sometimes, I'd stand by the window, watching the sunrise spill across the lawn, and think about how life has a strange way of returning what's truly yours, but only when you're ready to hold it without bitterness. David's memory still lived in that house, but it no longer haunted me. It reminded me of what it means to love, to lose, and to rebuild. And every night, when the lights of Second Shore glowed softly against the dark, I'd whisper to the quiet rooms, "You can't steal a woman's life, not when she's brave enough to buy it back."